Good afternoon, John. Good afternoon, Charles.
Good afternoon.
Good afternoon.
First of all, Charles, could you give me a brief little history about the club? I know the Hill Climb's been going a long time, but when did it first all start?
The club was incorporated in 1930 and ever since has grown with an enormous amount of enthusiastic Bugatti members. We now have a membership of over 2,200. Our base, as you know, is at Prescott Hill Climb, and we are here representing Bugattis and the Bugatti Owners Club. So over the course of many years, from when it started in those very early days, it has grown to be one of the most thriving, well-known, popular, well-organised and well-run clubs in the United Kingdom, in my belief.
And there's some good models, some lovely models here of the Bugatti, John. Can you give me any description of any on this stand today?
Yes, well, the one that seems to have drawn the most attention is the Type 46S, which is over here, which is a 5.3 litre straight 8. It's a touring car, and it's been in the family, that gentleman who owns it, it's been in his family for around 60 years. And although people look at it and say it's obviously never used, that's totally untrue. It's been to Switzerland this year, and it did 1,000 miles in Switzerland and came back home again, driven all the way on the road. And it's used all year round, but he doesn't use it when there's salt, obviously, on the roads, but the rest of the time he uses it. It's a motor car.
Well, that's got to be better than leaving it in a garage, isn't it, covered up?
Yes, indeed. Left in a garage, covered up, nobody sees it.
No point in having it.
It's just deteriorating, and it's...
I mean, they were racing cars, they were to race, they were to use on the road, and that's what they should be done with.
And to add on John's car, it was repainted in 1957, and the paintwork you see here on the stand is applied and painted in 1957. It hasn't been touched up or anything since. That, I think, shows wonderful example of the integrity of the body. There's so little movement, and it looks as good as new. I had a trip in that car on the Swiss Rally, and we went down an autostrada and we overtook two Type 55 Bugattis, and he was cruising along very happily at 75 to 80 miles an hour. And it was the most wonderful experience because it was purely automotive smoothness. There was no noise, just a lovely whir, a lovely surge of power, and completely perfect confidence in its handling. It was a memory, I'll tell you, that was.
And what about this one here?
Well, Charles should tell you about that, because that's his.
Yeah, this is a 1923 Brescia Bugatti. Yeah. It's bodied by Marron Poe AC, and in 1926, when it was manufactured, having been bodied by Marron Poe, it then went to Czechoslovakia. I bought the car unseen from a museum in France about 30 years ago, and I was assured it was the best handling, the best braking, the best performing Brescia Bugatti I could ever experience, and I would be a fool not to buy it. So being a fool, I did buy it, because when it came home, the chassis was found to be a little out of true, to put it mildly. There was a large amount of filler in the bodywork, two of the valve seats were cracked, a conrod was bent, third gear didn't engage at all because it was so worn, and one brake worked, and the steering was so vague that it weaved across the road. And it was rebuilt those 30 years ago by Ernie Allen, sadly no longer with us, who did the most cracking job. And this little Brescia that is behind us now took my son, our son, Piers, and myself on a rally around France in September, and we did over 1,980 miles, absolutely faultlessly, other than the magneto failed, and we had to change the magneto. So a cracking little car, two staggered seats, a dicky seat in the back. We put all our luggage in, off we went, no trailering, drove all the way to France, all the way back, and it went like a bird.
Well, that's great motoring, isn't it? And for cars of the age as well. So a little bit about the actual hill climb. It's running again this year. Have you got many events this year?
Yes, we have we start with British Hill Climb Championship events. We have two of those. We have a Midland Hill Climb Championship event. We have our own two club events, which are La Vie en Bleu, which is basically for French cars, but we rather expanded that this year and allowed Italian cars as well. And then we have the Autumn Classic, which is another sort of club event, but we encourage American cars. So particularly things with powered by Ford V8 flatheads. So that's in September, very end of September, first day of October, and in between that we have the Vintage Sports Car Club's event, which has traditionally always been the first weekend in August, and that's on a Saturday and a Sunday. And at the VSCC event you'll see more vintage cars in the car park than you'll see anywhere else in the country at any occasion. The car park is more amazing than the hill climb.
I spend more time in the car park looking at cars you've never seen before, probably would never seen again, but driven and owned by real enthusiasts. So they're not bulled up to the hilt. They're used, loved, mechanically perfect, and it's exactly as vintage cars should be. The car park, to me, is almost as interesting as the hill climb itself. It's magnificent.
And the competitors, there'll be well over 200 pre-war cars competing on the hill itself. And they all get 4 runs. So you've got, over a weekend, you've got the chance of seeing each of those cars in action 4 times. And the fastest cars are cars like ERAs. There will be fast Grand Prix Bugattis, similar to the Type 51 we've got here. Those are not quite as fast as the ERAs normally, but it's a very, very good event.
Well, I've done a lot of filming of the Vintage Sports Car Club over the years at Silverstone, and all the ERAs and Bugattis are driven really properly driven. You know, there's no messing about. And I did a film at Silverstone a few years back, and I had 3 ERAs coming into Loufield's complex abreast, 3 abreast. Brilliant stuff.
And it's something you'll remember for years to come, as do I, with 8-cylinder blown Bugattis going up Prescott. People always say it sounds like tearing calico. Whatever tearing calico is like, I know not. But the sound of a really well-driven 8-cylinder blown Bugatti, to me, is absolute magic. And it stays with me for ages and weeks to come.
Charles, I can tell you what tearing calico sounds like. They've got it the wrong way round. If you go and listen to Ed Burgess driving his 51 up Prescott, that's what tearing calico sounds like.
Well, I do now know. But it is an unbegotten sight and sound. Absolutely marvellous.
Well, thank you very much, gentlemen, for all the information. It's been a pleasure to speak to you. Thank you for the interview. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you, and thank you for your interest in Bugattis, the Bugatti Owners Club, and see you again soon, I hope.
I will indeed.
Thank you so much.